Prepare to wow at your next cookout with a sausage recipe so good, it just may steal the show. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am the Dawgfatha. We're here on Barbecue Boulevard. My aim is to help level up your backyard grilling game. So today we are making a jalapeno cheese sausage that I'm telling you is just so good it really just might steal the show. Jalapeno cheese sausage has become one of the favorites here in Central Texas, and I mean, all of us love it, but how many of us actually take the time to make it at home? Well, the aim of this video is to show you just how simple sausage making at home can be with a few key pieces of equipment. And hopefully you'll walk away from this with a newfound confidence in knowing that you could craft your own homemade sausage anytime you like. So let's get into it. Now, one of the key pieces of equipment that you're going to need in sausage making is a meat grinder. Now, there's several meat grinders on the market. You can get them from anywhere, and I would always urge you to get what you can afford. It doesn't mean you have to go out on go get a loan to get some big fancy 50 horsepower grinder. It just means get what you can afford, what you can work with. If you can't get a grinder, a dedicated grinder, then there's attachments that you can get for, say, a KitchenAid mixer where you can grind meat and make your own sausage at home. If you can't do that or not willing to do that, you can actually go to the grocery store and get ground meat, ground pork, ground beef, ground lamb, whatever you want to get, and you can make your sausage with ground meat already. Another piece of equipment that you're going to need is a mixing tub. You're going to need something big enough that once you have your ground product in it, you can actually thoroughly mix it without it coming up over the sides and all over your table or floor or whatever. So you want to make sure you have a good tub or pan that you can mix your product in. One of the other pieces of equipment that I find that I use a lot when sausage making is a steel tray with a wire rack on it. We're going to use this to be able to put our sausage links on and dry the casings out once we get to that point. And they slide easily into the refrigerator, so it works out perfectly for this. Also, you're going to need a stuffer. Now, stuffers come in all sizes: 5 pound, 10 pound, 15 pound, 20 pound and up. You just want to get you a good solid sausage stuffer that works for your needs, whether that be a manual hand crank stuffer or an electric stuffer. But I will say, if you get into sausage making, electric stuffers really do make your life easy. Okay, now these are just a few pieces of equipment that I think you'll probably need. I'm in no shape, form, or fashion a sausage guru, but I've made sausage a few times, and these are the key pieces that I tend to use on a regular basis. Now, the sausage making method that I use employs a 3-day process. I know 3 days sounds like a long time, but I promise you, it just gives you really good results. My brother Bill Dumas, who is known as the Sausage Sensei, is well known around these parts of Central Texas and all over the world, actually, because he travels everywhere teaching sausage classes. And I was fortunate enough to go down and attend one of his classes a while back with my brother BKC Cooks, and we had a fantastic time. And a lot of the principles that I use in sausage making, come to find out, Bill actually uses as well, so I knew I was on the right path. Today's recipe, we're using an all beef recipe. I'm using beef brisket. Now, a lot of times you end up having these beef trimmings left over when you trim your brisket, and I always say hang on to them because you'll probably use them for sausage or burgers or whatever, and this is what I'm using it for. Now, I also did pick up some really lean, or kind of lean beef from my Costco, which was like a beef round, and I cube that up. Now, we cut up our beef round and our trimmings in small enough pieces that they get down the throat of our grinder. So you want to make sure you cut it up fine enough that it will get into the throat of your grinder when you're ready to grind your meat. Hey guys, do you like to listen to podcasts? Well, you're in luck. The Dawgfatha is actually on a podcast. That's right, I'm one of the members of Black Smoke Barbecue Podcast. You can see us right here on YouTube, or you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts from. So come on by and check us out, Black Smoke Barbecue Podcast. Now, the first day is we're going to build a sausage base. Now, the sausage base is basically your fat and your meat plus your salt and your curing salt. All of that is combined on the first day, and this is going to be your sausage base. Now, why do I do a sausage base? Well, a sausage base is basically your proteins and salts, and now you can take it in any direction you want. If you want to make a mass batch of base and then you want to make several different flavor profiles of sausage, you can do that with a sausage base. Doesn't mean you have to start over from square one. You can just build a big batch of sausage base and then divvy it out and make whatever sausage flavor profiles you want. So on day one, we cut up our beef and fat, we put our salt in it, we put our curing salt in it, we mix it thoroughly, and then we refrigerate it overnight. Now, how do you know how much salts to use? Well, you're going to convert everything, guys. So typically we do everything here. We're talking pounds, but we're going to convert it because we're going to go to grams, because you want to be kind of accurate with things. And so the rule of thumb that I use is 1 pound equals 454 grams. So if I have 10 pounds, that 10 pounds is 4,540 grams. So now you know how many grams your total product is. Now, when you start to develop your recipe going forward, that's the number you're going to base everything off of. So for the salt, I typically will use a 1 to 2% salt ratio. Now, that is times your total product weight, or that 4,540 grams. You play around with the salt content and you adjust it to whatever you like. Typically for me, between 1 and 1.25% works really well, so that's what I do. Now the pink cure is a 0.25% factor. So basically your 4,540 grams times 0.25%, and that gives you about 11.5 grams. It's that simple to figure out your recipes. So we've got our total 4,540 grams of beef and fat. We've got 68 grams of salt, and we've got 11.5 grams of pink cure. Mix that up thoroughly, and that makes our sausage base. Now, the next thing I do also on this first day is I prepare my casings. You want to just rinse off these casings. If you have casings that are not pre-tubed, you want to make sure you rinse through the casings to flush them of any of the salts, the preserving salts from the packaging. So rinse your casings thoroughly. If they're pre-tubed, you just rinse the exterior of these casings thoroughly. And then what I do is I get a teaspoon and a half of baking soda and add it to a quart of water. And what I do with that is I mix that thoroughly, and I'll put my casings in it. And what that does is raise the alkalinity of that water, and it basically helps the tubing or the casing become slippery. That is key for when you're trying to get it onto your horn, or when you're going to stuff it. It makes it easier to get it onto the horn, and it just makes it for an easier stuffing experience. Okay guys, now we're on to day 2, where we're going to develop our recipe. So we're going to use 5 pounds of product or sausage base, which is 2,270 grams. To develop your own customized recipe, this is how easy it is. What I use is a 0.55% factor for my primary flavors. So if garlic, say, is one of my primary flavors, I'll take 2,270, multiply that times 0.55%, and that gives me 12.5 grams of garlic needed to be a primary flavor in this sausage recipe. Secondly, the same with pepper. If I want pepper to be another primary flavor, again, we're going to use 12.5 grams of pepper because it's the 0.55% factor of 2,270. And you get the idea. Whatever you want for your primary flavors, that's what I typically use. Now, of course, you can adjust that 0.55% factor however you want to. If you want it stronger, if you want it weaker, it's totally up to you. But that's what I use for primary flavors. Now for secondary flavors, we're basically going half that, but I take it to 0.25%. So if I have a secondary flavor, like say onion, if I want onion powder in this recipe, I'll do a 0.25% factor, and I'm going to go 6 grams. Basically a little half of what we had for our primary flavors. So we had 12.5 for primary. I'm going to go 6 for my secondary flavors. So all of my secondary flavors are going to be at 6 grams. Okay, and lastly is going to be our enhancing flavors. Now, our enhancing flavors or spices, I'm going to use a 0.125% factor. Our primary flavors were 12.5 grams. Our secondary flavors were 6 grams. So our enhancing flavors are going to be 3 grams. So if I'm using something like a mustard powder or a turmeric, I'll use 3 grams as an enhancing. Now guys, this is just a basic way to figure out how you want to develop a recipe. So again, it's 0.55% for your primary, it's going to be a 0.25% for your secondary, and a 0.125% for your enhancing flavors. Play around with it, have fun with it, figure out what flavors you want to use, but that's kind of what gets me in the ballpark of what I want to do whenever I'm developing a recipe. So one of the things that I use for binding is going to be a milk powder. Now, binders are typically going to be 2 to 4%, so I usually split the middle of it and go 3%. So for our recipe of a 5-pound batch, I'm going to use 68 grams of milk powder to help bind our sausage together. Now, liquid and cheese are going to be about a 10% factor, okay? And that's each. So if we're going to do a 2,270 gram recipe or 5 pounds, I'm going to use 10% of that. It's going to be water. So 227 grams of water is what I'm going to use to help get this whole recipe to come together. Last, we have jalapenos. Now I'm going to use fresh jalapenos. You can use dehydrated jalapenos if you like, but I'm going to use fresh, and I'm going to just go 6%. Again, this is just a number I'm grabbing because I don't want it to be too overpowering. I don't want it to be where I don't taste it at all. So I'm going to try 6%. And if I find that 6% doesn't work well for me and I need more, then I'll go to maybe 7 or 8% next batch. But this is the beauty of trying to figure out what you like in your sausage and figuring out what recipe is going to become your go-to. Okay, so now we've got our recipe all built, and we can set it aside because we're going to use it in a little while. Because here on day 2, we're going to grind our product and get everything mixed, and we're going to go ahead and link it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our base. Now we got 5 pounds of base that we made on day 1, and we had it in our refrigerator. Now prior to grinding, I went ahead and put it in my freezer just to get it really nice and cold and kind of firm it up so it'll actually grind easier. Now I'm going to run this through my fine plate. I have a fine and a coarse plate with my grinder, which happens to be a 3/4 horsepower from meat. But we're going to run it through our smaller grind plate or our fine grind plate. So we're going to run it through our grinder, and what we're going to do is we're also going to run our jalapenos through. Okay, now that we've got everything ground, we're going to go ahead and get our recipe mixed through. So we're going to take our recipe that we've put together earlier, and we're going to put it into our grind. We're going to mix all of this stuff together, okay? Now, typically, I'll reserve the cheese. I'll wait because you still want to be able to taste your product to make sure that you have it all the way you want it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the cheese to the side. I'm going to mix everything else together. I'm going to get it to where I get that protein extraction. And when you're mixing your product, you'll know you got protein extraction because all of this product will become really nice and gooey, sticky, and you'll be able to form a patty in your hand. Open your hand, hold your hand upside down, and if that meat sticks to your hand without falling off of your hand, you've pretty much created that protein extraction that you need to actually have a good sausage. Now that we've got that all created, this is the time where you want to taste the sausage. So you take out a little bit of it, fry it up in a pan, and you taste it. And if it tastes great to you, cool. If not, adjust the flavors that you feel like you need to adjust. Add it into your mix it up, taste it again. Make note of it so you'll know exactly what you adjusted so that you'll know that recipe for your next time making this recipe. Now that you're satisfied with the recipe you've gotten together, that's when I'll come back and I'll put the cheese in. I'll fold in the cheese. Now we've got our cheese and our sausage all put together. Now we can go ahead and link it. So we're just going to take our product and we're going to put it into our stuffer. We're going to make sure we compact the contents down into the stuffer so that we get as much air out as we possibly can. Then basically we're going to get our casing. We're going to put it onto the horn of our stuffer, and then we're going to start to link it. Now, linking it could be a little tricky and it takes a little bit of practice, but basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get that casing onto your horn, and then a lot of times what people will do is take their the end of that casing and they'll tie a knot off at the end of the horn, and they'll start stuffing. I don't really do that. I leave it open. I just kind of fold it over in my hand, and as I start to stuff, I use my opposite hand or my right hand to kind of pinch at the end of the horn so that I can apply that pressure and form a good link. And then basically I just keep going until I get to the end of that casing. Now that I've got my casing stuffed, and when I go to actually form them in links, I just basically pinch off the desired length, slide it over one link, pinch again, and then I twirl. And as I twirl, I'm basically locking in that link and tying off that casing in between the links. Now that I get all of my links done, I just basically put those on that wire rack on a steel tray, and what I'll do is put it in my refrigerator overnight so that those casings can dry out, and that basically will kind of lock in those individual links. So on day 3, which happens to be the day we're on right now, is that basically I will cut the individual links and then I'll get them on my grill. Now today I'm using my Spider Grill's Huntsman and I'm running it at 185 degrees. I'm just going to do a really low smoke, because what you want to do is you want to do that low heat because you don't want to render fat out of your sausage at this point. All you really want to do is bring that internal temperature up to about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And what that does is it basically will cook that sausage the way it needs to be cooked, and you're not going to render anything. You're going to tighten up your casing, and it's just going to make for a beautiful sausage. Now, once we get to that 150 degrees internal, that's when we're going to pull the sausage off. Now, a lot of people may take it off at that point and they'll put it in an ice bath to stop the cooking process and that type of thing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. I don't do that. I happen to put mine on a rack and I'll pop it back in the refrigerator and I'll let it sit overnight again. At that point, it's ready to go for if I want to cook it or if I want to bag it up, seal it, freeze it, whatever I want to do with it. And at that point, when you do your regular cook, you just bring it back up to 150 degrees before serving and you're good to go. Now again, you don't have to just take it and put it in the refrigerator. You can do an ice bath with it and then put it right back on the grill if you want to. It's completely up to you. Again, there's no rules in barbecue. There's no rules telling you you have to do it this way or you have to do it this, the other way. Just figure out what works for you. But for me, this is what works for me, so that's what I do. And now you guys have understood how we make sausage, so all we got to do is cut into some and check it out. Hey guys, do me a favor. If you're finding some value in this content or you're at least entertained, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really does help to grow the channel and be able to do videos like this. And by the way, what kind of videos would you like to see on this channel? Put it in the comments down below. Let's make it happen. All right, back to the video. All right, so we've got our sausage off of the grill. We put it on our Huntsman here, and it did wonders for us. And I got to tell you, the sausages come out fantastic. The color on the sausage is phenomenal. And that's what we're looking like right there. Now again, when you're doing those enhancing flavors, whether you use turmeric, paprika, or different pepper powders, you can get some great color into your sausage with that. But this is what we're looking like, and we got to see if we got a good snap on it. So let's see here. Not too bad, not too bad. That's what we're looking like in here. All right, now I've gotten this off the grill and it's probably rested now for a good 20 minutes or so, but man, there you go. You got a good look at what this sausage looks like. So all we got to do now is take a bite and let's go in. All right, so guys, again, if you enjoyed what you saw here, make sure you check out what I got listed right there, as well as click on that subscribe button right there, and I'm gonna see you in the next video. Sausage making. Oh yeah.